What is up, guys? Doug Polk here, and we're back for another episode of Poker Hands. And today we're going to be looking at a classic 7-figure pot between Tom Dwan and Phil Ivey.
23,000.
Yes.
In position, I wouldn't be surprised at all to see a call from Tom Dwan here. 17,000 more, though. That's an overraise.
Tom Dwan thinking about what to do here. He's got 7-6 of hearts.
Ironically enough, we have a coin toss before the flop.
I mean, Robert, who has the edge in this game? I'm looking. Patrick Antonius, Tom Dwan, Phil Ivey. Three of the best in the world. Who's got the edge?
I'd be guessing if I told you. I don't really know.
Well, go ahead and guess. I'm curious.
I have to say Phil Ivey overall, but it's a close one. Real close.
Our hand begins in quite the soft three-handed lineup with Tom Dwan, Phil Ivey, and Patrick Antonius battling it out. Tom Dwan decides to open the button with 7-6 suited, certainly the standard play, and now the action's on Phil Ivey in the small blind with ace-deuce off. Now, normally I'd advocate for a fold here, and it can be okay to 3-bet with an ace in your hand, but if you're going to use every ace in the small blind, you really open the door up for Tom Dwan to either flat or come in with some bluff 4-bets. So I'd probably like to see Ivey just throw this hand away, but if you want to occasionally mix this into your game, I'm cool with that. Patrick Antonius gets out of the way, and now it's back on Tom Dwan. And when you're playing this deep with a hand like 7-6 suited, you have to at least call, which he does, and we take a flop.
Tom Dwan is going to call. We're going to see a flop.
3-5.
Jack 5-3. Both players pick up a gut shot. If the 4 falls, talk about an action card.
Especially if it's not a club.
If a 4 falls, we're going to see some action. Ivey with a 4 would make the wheel. A 4 would give Dwan the nuts, as long as it's not a 4 of clubs, like you said.
Yes.
Phil Ivey bets out 35,000 into this pot.
Pot is an astonishing $84,500. There's no going back from this.
This is a tough call for Tom Dwan, actually. He's got enough gamble. He's capable of calling here.
Well, it's not just calling for a 4, you're calling to float as well. And
Cool.
In position.
he can call to represent clubs. He can call to represent that he's got a pair of 5s, a jack.
The flop comes Jack 5 tray with 2 Binks feet, and at this point Phil Ivey decides a continuation bet for 35,000. I like this play because he has the ace of clubs in his hand, so he knows that Tom Dwan won't have the nut flush draw, and additionally, if his opponent does have a little something, he can get there on a turn 4 or ace. So this is definitely the correct play to make in the small blind. Over to Tom Dwan, and he has 2 options. With a gut shot to the nut this deep, folding isn't on the table, but he can decide to either call or go for a raise, and they both have some merit. Calling is good because you can play some later streets, and raising is good as well because you might get your opponent off a hand like ace-deuce, but additionally put them in some tough spots with some maybe thinner value bets or also some overcard type hands like ace-king, ace-queen, or king-queen. So I can see either way making some sense. Tom Dwan does decide to go ahead and flat, and we take a turn.
Cool.
Oh my gosh! Wow.
Oh, wow.
All right, was that turn dialogue scripted? Let's play that back one more time.
Oh my gosh! Wow.
Oh, wow. This is unbelievable. Ivey cannot win this pot, but he's made a straight.
Both players have a straight.
Wait, both of them have a straight?
Both players have a straight.
Talk about the gin card. Ivey makes the wheel. Dwan has the absolute nuts. There's 75,000.
80, 85,
90.
90,000.
90,000. Phil Ivey bets $90,000.
The turn comes an offsuit 4, and at this point, Phil Ivey is totally fucked. I mean, when you turn a straight in a pot that's already over 100K, You really only beat if your opponent flatted the button with 6 deuce suited, which is very unlikely, or he has one of the few 7-6 suited hands as well. So you're pretty much always good unless he has basically 7-6 suited. So when you bet this turn as Phil Ivey, he bets about $90,000. You're thinking about Vegas and the fucking Mirage. Over to Tom Dwan, and now he has a decision to make. Should he smooth call and let Ivey try and hang himself on the river, or should he raise and try and get some value? Well, in general, I would probably lean towards calling, because if I am in Tom Dwan's shoes, I'm going to have a lot of hands I want to call within the turn, like flush draws or pair plus straight draws, and those hands are going to want to call and play some rivers. Additionally, there's not too many bad rivers. I mean, sure, obviously you're unhappy if another club rolls off, but at the same time, you have the nut straight, and that's really only a small number of rivers. If the board pairs on the river, it's very unlikely you're beat, because there's not many hands that would 3-bet in the small blind that make a boat, so you're really only worried about the flush, and even then you're only so worried. I guess maybe some reason to raise might be you think that he has an overpair and you want to try and stack it. However, if you raise, you might get him to lay down some overpairs anyway, because this is going to be a very difficult spot for a lot of money. So I'd like to see a flat here, but apparently Tom Dwan disagrees with me and puts in a raise.
Unbelievable.
142.6.
And the raise is 142,000 more.
Dwan decides to make it $230K to go, and if you're Ivey, you have to be thinking that you're ahead. I mean, first off, it's quite possible Tom could have a hand like pocket 5s, pocket 4s, pocket 3s, and think that he's good and want to build a pot and deny some equity, or maybe stack a hand like an overpair. Additionally, Tom could be bluffing, in which case you're obviously good. And finally, Tom could also have a hand like ace-deuce suited himself, and you're chopping the pot. So really, if I'm in Ivey's shoes, the question is, do I want to slow play my hand and let Tom hang himself on the river, or go for the fast play and try and stack him right now? And if I had 7-6 suited, I might go for the trap, thinking there's not many rivers that are that bad for me. But with ace-deuce, it's a little more questionable. I mean, if a deuce or a 6 or a 7 comes from the river, you're going to put yourself in a tough spot. If a club comes, you're in sort of a tough spot. It does help that you have the ace of clubs, but at the same time, it could make sense to fast play here to try and get Tom Dwan to put his stack in. However, I might question if Tom would raise a set here on the turn. You know, if it did decide to flat the flop, would he really decide to fast play here on the turn? So a lot of stuff going on here, a lot of different reasons to take either a call line or a re-raise all-in line. Let's see what Ivey decides to do.
And this is where we're going to see how good is Phil Ivey.
I'm all in.
And he's
all in. Oh my gosh.
Ivey is all in.
All in and
Dwan calls with the nuts. Ivey cannot win this pot.
Wow. Good hand.
Oh my gosh.
That's no good.
We have just broken poker television history. 1.1 million in this pot.
And he's drawing dead.
It is the biggest pot in the history of televised poker. And it's going to Tom Dwan. He's got the nut straight.
We just saw poker history made right here tonight.
26, 36, 96.
And they're counting the chips right now. The Jack of Hearts in the river, completely irrelevant. A 1.1 million chip pot
400,700.
going to Tom Dwan.
Phil Ivey lost over $500,000 in one hand.
Anyone that plays poker for a while is going to know what it feels like to lose a pot this huge. But it feels especially bad when you get in drawing completely dead. And you know what? Maybe there's a little something to take away from here as a side note. When you do play poker that's this many blinds deep for this much money, you want to try and have those gut shots that draw to the nuts instead of the ones that don't, because in these rare situations, you do get to win big pots. Now, that shouldn't be the main thing to take away from here. The main thing should be the ranges, individual hands, how to play them. But as you get deeper, drawing the nuts becomes more important, and maybe look to add that into your game. Thank you for joining me here for today's episode of Poker Hands. And as you're watching this episode, I am currently flying to Pittsburgh to cover the Brains vs. AI Challenge. So we will have some content from that coming up for you. Be a little bit of a different week here on the channel, but I'm looking forward to it. Oh yeah, and before I forget, make sure to subscribe to the channel.